Hi there everyone, welcome back to the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage. You are looking at the second of two Viking Husqvarnas that I have recently overhauled. The first one, of course, was the model 19E, and I think I've got a video, either it has published now or it will soon. I've got quite a few videos talking about these machines. This one is debuting because this is the debut and I want to get it listed to see if we can find a new owner for it. This is, of course, the other Viking that you saw in, or will see in one of my videos showing both models and how they look extremely similar. In fact, if you look at them head on, you wouldn't immediately notice that they were different. And as is true today, when you would go into a sewing dealer, any of the brands had this strategy. There was always a good, a better, and a best. The nice thing about vintage machines is that the quality of the machine did not vary. What did vary were the number of features. When you start adding features to mechanical sewing machines, it raises the cost because everything that is extra has to be done mechanically. And so they were more expensive to produce. This is the model CL21A. And here are some of the differences, although visually you really wouldn't, you'd have to look closely and know what you were looking for to see that there's more than just a model number difference. This machine has a 1.5 amp motor. It's one of the strongest motors ever put into a sewing machine. And the 19E has a 1 amp. And if you have a 19E and you have a 1 amp motor, don't feel bad. You have plenty of power. In fact, most all of you would never really push a machine where you would need 1.5 amps, but you can certainly do it. It can make a difference sometimes when you are maybe going to be sewing some heavier stuff. But one of the primary differences, of course, is that just like the 19E, this machine has a knob, or I guess you call it a knob, that you can turn to the right or to the left to change needle position. And of course, the 19E model has that. What is different is that this model has a cam in the back, and it can do decorative stitches. If you'll remember, the 19E can do things like blind stitch, right, and multi-point zigzag. But this machine can do, it can also do decorative stitches. And some of you have modern machines where you have all these decorative stitches you can do that are dictated by a computer. But back in the vintage era, the era that I focus on, you could also get decorative stitches, but they were always done mechanically. And so that explains the higher cost of production. And thus this would have sold for more money than the 19E. But again, it's whether you have the 19 or the 21 model that you see here, all of them are built to the same quality level. The primary difference, of course, is in features. And I've been actually doing I always do test stitching, and I've been doing some test stitching here, checking out a lot of the decorative stitches and zigzag stitches. You can see here there's a scallop stitch here. So there's some zigzag. There's another decorative stitch. These features were marketed. You see the thread on the other side. There's sort of a navy blue thread, purple thread on this side. Really nicely balanced. People who bought machines with decorative stitches, they would sometimes use them for children's clothes, maybe for decorating some sort of linen that they were designing for their home. Here's another. You see the navy blue on the other side. I am going to demonstrate the machine for you. I've got some more cloth, but I wanted just to show you. I like to go through, test out all the stitches, make sure they're working fine. And then I've got some webbing here we'll test out. Hopefully those stitches will show up. The webbing has a funny texture. So without further talking, oh, by the way, this of course is a free arm machine, and it is a convertible, just like the 19E. And with just the pull of one lever, she comes right off. It's one of the easiest of the this is called the sewing deck. It's one of the easiest that I have found to install and take off. It's pretty simple, which is nice. You shouldn't have to fidget with it too much. Let's see. Of course, it has a light. The light switch for this one is on the back, whereas normally with the 19E it was underneath. What else to show you? Of course, your tension Your tension dials for the upper thread are here. And just as with the 19E, you have stitch length control on this knob. You have reverse. You also have stitch width. And anyway, we're going to sew a few pieces of fabric here so you guys can kind of get a feel for how she sews. And let's take a look. Okay, I'll start out with more of this sort of this is a medium weight cotton from a sort of a khaki colored cotton here. And I'm going to start with, let's see, we'll go to the longest stitch length, which is number 4. And I've got it set on 0. So we'll start out here with just a straight lock stitch so you can see how it performs. Let's see if I can get the camera angle for you guys. And you'll notice I can get the needle to move slowly, which is impressive given that this is an analog foot pedal that came with the machine. And we'll come over here. Okay, now for a simple zigzag, what we're going to do is we are going to make 2 adjustments really quickly. We take this lever and we push it all the way back to the number 5, and that's your default for zigzag. So if you just wanted to go between straight and zigzag, you could leave this here on 5, and then of course the only adjustment you would make to choose between those 2 stitches would of course be your stitch width. Let's see, get my needle up. I'm going to come over and we'll do the widest stitch stitch length, and we'll do, this is going to be a wide zigzag. And again, I can go slow. I can also speed up. And she'll go even faster than this, but I want to get in a kind of a good space. Can angle this in a good position. Now, let's see, let's come down and we'll do one of the decorative stitches. Anytime you're going to do a decorative stitch and you want to take it from 5 to another one, you simply take your stitch width and you move it to 0. So it's kind of your default. You want to start there. So we'll come over here and we'll go to, I'll just pick stitch 3 just because. And I'm going to shorten the stitch length because decorative stitches, and Husqvarna called these embroidery stitches because a lot of the reason that these decorative stitches were created in the first place was to mimic embroidery, which of course when you're doing embroidery by hand, as you might imagine, it's pretty labor intensive. Okay, so I've got my decorative stitch set here. I've got my stitch length. And now I need to, of course, I'm going to bring, you can alter the width of these decorative stitches, but I want to come over all the way over to the widest setting, which will help us see it on the camera. Let's see here. What have I got? Let's do 1. Now that is a multi-point zigzag, and it's going to look almost exactly like the other zigzag. So let me pick a different one. And I don't know if you guys can see, but the needle is making multiple stops or multiple punctures to create what looks like a multi-point zigzag, but visually on camera, to me, it looks just like a zigzag. So I'll change this. So again, I will go over, just go to 0, and let's come all the way out. Let's get my needle up here. And we'll come all the way out and set ourselves up for this decorative stitch. And I think I'm going to keep my stitch length. Oh, let's get our width out here. Now let's take a look and see what it does. See what Husqvarna was all excited about for these decorative stitches. I've shown you some of these samples of what I've been doing earlier to do the test stitching, but I wanted you to see it in action. So we'll take this off. kind of let you guys see this up close. So, all right. Now this row here was the zigzag. This was the multi-point zigzag, and it really looks just like a zigzag here. It doesn't really look different, even though it's constructed differently. So you'll notice with this is the long straight lock stitch here. Very straight, very nice stitches. You can see on the back, I turn over, showing you the purple colored thread. And then you'll see this scallop decorative stitch here. Again, today we call them decorative stitches or designer stitches, but they were called embroidery stitches back in the day. Let's see, now I want to do some of this webbing here. The Vikings have an interesting thing. Let me see if I can zoom in and show you the feed dogs. The feed dogs are quite impressive. You have the two long sets of teeth, if you will, and then there's a middle one for the back and another one for the front. So these machines, they feed really well. I think those feed dogs help explain one of the reasons that these machines make good workers. Okay, so let's get our webbing under the foot here. Now, I'm going to go back to Zigzag. So I'm going to set that to, got my decorative stitch back on number 5, and I've got, excuse me, get my width all the way over. And let's see what the zigzag looks like on webbing. I'll see how it turns out. It's not always easy to see a straight stitch on webbing because it kind of gets buried under the texture there, but we'll take a look here and see what we get. Oh, I'm going to go back to long stitch. And you can see it goes right through the webbing, doesn't seem to mind at all. And that's something you really get on any vintage machine, this one included. Virtually all vintage machines that can do zigzag are pretty strong. Now I'm going faster, I could go faster still, but let's zoom back out. But I don't want my needle to be unhappy with me because right now I have a standard universal home sewing needle. I don't have a jeans needle in there. I believe I have a size 16 in there at the moment, but you can see the zigzag, and then I'll flip it over and you'll see the purple side. Very nice the way it holds stitch tension, and really powerful. And so those of you who are looking for a vintage machine, maybe you need a free arm. And as I think I mentioned on the 19E, the free arms of the Viking Husqvarnas of this period, as well as the Berninas, have some of the more narrow free arms. Later machines, they would kind of make the free arms a little bulkier. That may not make any difference to you unless you're doing smaller size clothing where this could be helpful. And but yes, this is of course a Swedish-made Viking Husqvarnas back when they were made in Sweden. So if you have any interest in this machine, please contact me at the Kijiji listing. I will have a list of the various things I have done to the machine to give it its reconditioning and getting it ready for a new life of sewing. If any of you have Viking Husqvarnas, share your thoughts. Let me know what you like about them. This machine will come with, I have extra bobbins for the machine for anyone who decides that they would like to get this one. Thanks for watching, everybody.